Mike.
Cincinnati's back in the orange and black. Cincinnati on the map, baby, tell me where you at. In the jungle, who they bringing it back to the jungle. At the game day, yeah, the jungle's back. Got the natty pack in the orange and black.
Welcome, everybody, to the Cincinnati Bengals Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I am your host, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, number 58, Joe Kelly. How you doing, Joe?
Mike, it's been better days in Bengal land, and been reading a lot of articles, man, of former players. One in particular, Carson Palmer, and he really epitomized, I think, how a lot of former players feel, me included, in really what the Browns, the family, how they view the team, how they view players, and really how they treat their players. And although I want to say that, it's about winning, right? You would think that this thing, it's about winning. Every year you go in and it's about winning. But when you see the same things happening over and over again, and decisions that they make, they're not in the best interest of your team. Because when you go into training camp shows you, Mike, what you have. It gives you you're looking at getting a pulse of if you have a tough team. Maybe you need a tough guy. Your offensive line, your defensive line, your special teams. You're looking at that, and that's why you make cuts. That's why you add players and get rid of players, and you do that throughout the season. And I'm even though I know that the Browns are not really fully committed to winning. It's unfortunate that these last this past year and the lack of moves and how they treated Andy Dalton, in my opinion, epitomizes Carson Palmer's story. I don't know if you read it, but he really bashed them on the things that they could have done in order to make the team better and things they didn't do. So, it's a pretty poignant article. And, I would hope that a lot of Bengal fans would read it in order just to see, his point of view.
Yeah, and the fact is there's still a lot of Bengal fans that consider Carson Palmer a quitter. And I think that actually what Carson Palmer did led to the Bengals making the playoffs 5 straight years, because I think some things did change a little bit at least. And, I think Bengal fans are nuts because Carson Palmer was treated poorly also by this organization. And it fits in with the way most Bengals players have been treated over the years.
Yeah, you look at it. I'm reading the article, and you don't want to make things personal, and I can just say, okay, here's my personal experience. Coming into my second contract and negotiating with Mike Brown, and knowing at that time in 1990, I would say this in front of my other teammates. I was the best linebacker on that team. You have to play within the scope of what you're doing. But when you talk about speed, when you talk about physical aggression, when you talk about knowledge of the defense, and what I was capable of doing, I was better than any linebacker on that 1990 team. And you trade me away when you asked me to stay here. You didn't go get another linebacker. We had some backup, like Kevin Walker. I thought that year, it really should have been myself and Kevin Walker, the starting inside linebackers. So, in my opinion, that was the first move that wasn't for the better of the team. That didn't go, and you didn't go and say, okay, we made this move to make our team better. You didn't do that. When Carson, and it's unfortunate because Carson was a really good quarterback, and he showed that by when he went to the Raiders what he did, and then how he ended his career with Arizona. This guy he personally witnessed and discussed things with Mike Brown personally. And as far as talking about here, we don't need this guy. This guy's bad for the team. We need this. We need to get better in this area. These are conversations that he had with Mike Brown.
Well, how about this? I've got a few quotes here from Carson Palmer in this article, and he says there's so much pressure on a quarterback as it is. When you have to worry about some idiot making the decision on a roster move or hiring coaches or some of the stuff you have to worry about, when you have that added pressure and stress of not trusting the organization and knowing that they don't know what they're doing, that's just an added amount of stress you don't need, especially as a younger player. He goes on to say, if the most important thing is the financials and the second most important thing is winning, then you don't have a chance. And it's so important that ownership is willing to do what it takes to win. You look at New England, and there's not a lot of luck. A lot of that is built specifically. You look at what Pittsburgh's done the last 20 years. There's not a lot of luck involved in that. You look at what Seattle's done. That's not a lot of luck. I mean, when you look at that, and Carson Palmer, no matter how they treated him, it's got to be pretty bad for him to, a decade later, still be bringing this up.
Yeah, I mean, because you're Mike, you live it. You've been a coach. You've been on the sideline. You've been on the field. You know how it is in the trenches. If your team, okay, we're not, our DBs are not as good. Our linebackers are not that good. We don't have a strong defensive line. We don't have that. And when you see that, when you're in a position like he was, you're a starting quarterback. You're one of the top tier quarterbacks in the National Football League. And you do have a more personal relationship with the owner, a lot more than I did. I spoke to Mike, in passing. When I negotiated my contract, that was probably the most personal time I spent with him. And when you talk about money in the NFL, all the revenue is split equally by all teams. So everybody is making the same, and they do that to make sure every team stays financially stable. So the money that they make locally, yes, it's a lot of money to the regular person, but the bulk of their money is already made. It's made by the TV contract. It's made by the national sponsorship. So they have the same capability. You have to spend a certain percentage of the salary cap. You have to spend a certain percentage of
Joe,
what the
Joe, don't you think maybe the reason they make you spend at least a minimum is because of guys like Mike Brown?
Oh, absolutely. Because of Mike Brown. You have to, because if it wasn't, there would be, a rummage sale all the time. Because at the end of the day, Mike knows Sunday, we're on 8. I'm going to the game on Sunday. I guarantee you it's going to be 40,000+ people. Still. Just
20,000 of those are Ravens fans, though, Joe. And
right. Oh yeah, you may have half of them Ravens fans, but when you look at it, you look at the organization, man, and I sit back, as a fan now, more than a player, but it constantly brings me back to being, a former player, and I'm looking at these guys, and I know there's guys out there that are busting their ass. And I know there's guys on that team that know that damn offensive line is pathetic. And they know that there's guys that they can get. They know that, here, you get, you bench Andy. Bench 68. Take a pick. Bench anybody on that offensive line, because they are not doing their job. And it's not Andy's line. They're not doing their job. Everybody can see that. So when you look at those things, it does get a level of frustration as a former player, as a backer of the Bengal organization, as a fan, and you constantly see what they don't do. now, like you said, when we were talking prior to going on air, we were talking about AJ, whether or not he was going to play, Mike, and all indications were that he was going to play initially, but now it's pointing to the other direction, and it's still as a result of this guy seeing that this team is 0-8. Should I come back and risk getting hurt? The team, I just seen what they did to my buddy. My buddy that we came in together, I seen how they just put the blame, this 0-8, they put the total blame on Andy because Andy is the only person that got benched. So it wasn't any other moves. So you totally put the blame on him. So if I were AJ and I seen this, and now when y'all look at the reality of professional football, I didn't realize the reality of professional football, Mike, until the day I got traded. And then I said, wow, that woke me up. So this is not a dream. This is reality. So I can only imagine that AJ is sitting there contemplating, should I really go out here and bust my ass, risk my ankle? Because I've proven to Mike Brown, we as fans, we know what this guy is capable of doing. We know what he's done. There's nothing else that he has to show them in order to get a long-term commitment. You see what Jerry Jones has done in Dallas. You know, all those guys were Prescott doesn't have his, but he gave the wide receiver long-term. He did, he gave Ezekiel Elliott long-term. He gave the linebacker long-term. So when you're looking at that and other team members, the offensive line, they all got extensions. They're seeing a commitment from the top. And you don't have that here, Mike.
No, there's no commitment because if you don't want to keep him, I understand that. He's going to be 32. He's been hurt the last few years off and on. That's fine. But trade him. Trade Andy Dalton. And I can tell you this as a Bengal fan, I hope A.J. Green gets traded. And it's not because I don't want him to be a Bengal. It's not because I don't think he's a good player. I just like to see him to get to go somewhere where he has a chance to win a freaking playoff game before his career's over. Because when you come here, your career gets wasted. I mean, you know the old saying back in the 90s, they'd get a player out of the draft, and he'd be good the first year, and then he'd kind of drop off after that, and they'd say, well, he's been Bengalized. And that's what it is. I mean, and the Bengalized to me is this. If I am the head coach and I don't have the final decision, how is any player ever going to respect me? You know, it's like we heard for years that Marvin Lewis wanted to get rid of certain guys. Wasn't allowed. And when he's not allowed, I don't care what Marvin Lewis says then because I know it's not up to him. I'll just go cut Mike Brown's grass and I'll be fine. And you basically cut the legs out from underneath the coach. Because if you don't have a commitment from winning, that's one thing. But when you don't have a commitment to your head coach, that's another. And when you won't go out and get something the head coach needs to win, it's really hard to blame the head coach. And I've been in situations, it's not the NFL, but arena football, where, we'll have a quarterback go down, and I need another one. And the owner will be like, well, you're going to find somebody locally because I can't afford to pay him as much as we paid the other guy. And then all of a sudden, I'm trying to find a quarterback for $100 or $200 a game instead of $600 or $700 a game. And that doesn't happen. And when you don't have that commitment, you can't blame the head coach. But what I can say is this. The situations I was in was where everything started the way I wanted it, and then it kind of went south in the middle, and the owner decides once the starting quarterback gets hurt, maybe I can save some money by not paying one. The problem here is, with Zach Taylor, Marvin Lewis, and every coach that ever came here before them, if you know that you don't have that complete control, why the hell do you come here? And I think that answer to that question is Zach Taylor was young and he was desperate. But also, remember, it took him a good 6 to 8 weeks to find somebody that would accept being the defensive coordinator here. And I would think that was one of the gigantic reasons why.
Absolutely. As an experienced veteran defensive coordinator, do I put myself in a situation? Do I put my family? Because when you're coming, you're making a commitment. So I'm not only am I taking this defensive coordinator position, Mike, I am uprooting my family, wherever we are, and I'm coming to Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm coming under, and I'll be under the tutelage of a guy who's never been a head coach at any level. So me, if I were a defensive coordinator in that situation, I wouldn't be comfortable either, because to me, who they hired told me that guy is not going to have any type of control over the kind of players that he gets. So if I'm going to come here, am I going to be able to run my own defense? Am I going to be able to choose my own players? So you think about that, and I'm sure you talk just like the players talk. Coaches talk. Coaches have agents, and the agents talk. Do you want to go to Cincinnati? Who's the head coach? Oh, they hired this guy who was the quarterback coach at the